All right, let's get to a bunch of the feedback that's coming here on the Tigers. Doug in Oxford writes in, I don't understand how fans can celebrate Verlander and former players leaving us, but we don't want Bregman because he didn't choose us. That's from Doug in Oxford. Well, the simple answer is Bregman's done nothing for us. Those players did do something for us. Look, I don't I learned a long time ago that I don't need it. We don't need to tell fans how to feel. They feel how they feel. If you have a history with a player who did great things in Detroit, that's a lot different than a player that never came here, I would say. But next text, the Pittsburgh arm to target is David Bednar. The closer, the guy in the back end of the bullpen, yeah, he'd be really, really good. I don't mind that move.
No, welcome addition to the bullpen. Take him.
If the Tigers can't get a high-end bullpen arm at the deadline, I'd look for Chase Lee to get more leverage innings. He's been very good.
I worry about Chase Lee. Is it a gimmicky pitcher because the sidearm delivery? Is it just a matter of time before people catch up to him as they see more of him? He's doing great for this team right now, but I'm a little hesitant about giving him more of a workload or more leverage situations. But here's the other thing. I trust A.J. Hinch to make that right decision.
Doug, I heard the tail end of you saying someone said something about moving Keith to first and sending Torque down. However, I never referred to him as a bum. And yes, after yesterday's game, I'd still take Bregman, move Keith to first, and give Torque some time in Toledo. I might be conflating two texts there. We're combining two texts. Somebody yesterday, I read a text on the air referring to him as a bum. And I'm just like, come on, man. Guy might hit 30 home runs, driving 100 runs, going through a cold stretch. The target of criticism slides up and down the roster on a winning team.
It does.
Pitching. I worry more about 2 and 3 and a middle reliever, a closer. You put pitcher in who's doing the job. You put the pitcher in who's doing the job, I think is what they meant to write. Yeah, I mean, look, there is something about adding a big name that is so alluring and makes you feel really, really good about your team. Remember when the Tigers got David Price?
Yes.
They got David
Vividly.
frickin' Price.
It was at Comerica Park. It was crazy. That whole thing. That was wild. I think there were the two in-season names. Was Cespedes? It was a mid-season one, right?
I don't remember Cespedes quite as much, but could have been.
At the time, I mean, he was really good. It was exciting to get a guy like Cespedes, and it didn't stay here long. But the Price one was big. That was adding. That was a team of riches with pitching, and you went over the top with it by adding David Price, and somehow it didn't work to a World Series.
All right, so the NBA draft, it happened again. Detroit is on the clock, and we'll be right back. It is amazing how many drafts it feels like our team is on the clock, and they go to commercial break. I suspect tonight the Red Wings will be on the clock, and they'll break for commercial.
I doubt that because the NHL is different with the first round anyway. But I thought it was really kind of funny and ironic last night because as I'm watching it, they even joked about before they did this as they're literally ready to do this to the Pistons. They joked about it. Hey, remember when it happened to Jokic?
Yeah.
And it went to it, and everybody goes, "Oh, Taco Bell commercial." Yeah, right. And then it ends up being the league MVP. Right. And they relay that story, and then the host tells a story of when she interviewed him, what his line was about that. And then sure enough, and we'll be right back. The Pistons, they're on the clock, pick is in, and here comes Chaz Lanier.
Yep.
And I'm just starting to laugh because it happened to the Detroit team again. It happens to be the player that you wanted the Pistons to draft.
Yep.
And they come back for commercial break, and someone else is already on the clock. But they had time to talk, which was good. They didn't blow it off. They did talk about him for a couple of minutes and said some really glowing things about him. So, but yes, for the sake of what you were watching last night, it happened again.
Yeah. Look, what are they getting here? They're getting what is being people call the best shooter in the draft. The one thing about I watched Tennessee basketball, surprising amount, in large part because I wanted Dalton Connect last year. And Zakai Ziegler, the point guard there, feels like he's been there forever. Connect was sort of the guy that Ziegler would set up. And he leaves, goes to the NBA draft, and they get Chaz Lanier, transfer from North Florida, and he picks up where Dalton Knecht left off. And when you watch him play, he's not a spot-up shooter. He can shoot on the move. He's a guy who can shoot with somebody in his face. He's a guy who's comfortable from 3-4 feet beyond the arc. He's got all of the makings of being an elite shooter in the NBA. The question is, does he have anything else? And the skill set that he possesses is the most coveted of what's going on in the game today. He's got to prove that he can do other things, but he's got a quick release. He can shoot off the bounce. And the funny thing is, the Kai Ziegler, who I mentioned was Dalton Knecht's setup guy, was a setup guy. The Pistons signed him as an undrafted free agent. So they're bringing in the Tennessee backcourt. But, this feels like a modern-day NBA second-round specialist pick. And there's belief that he could play early. So to get anything out of the second round, I mean, there's a lot of the way it works now, the less predictability. So guys can be selected in the second round and go on to do great things, especially ones drafted during Taco Bell commercials.
Right.
But bottom line is, I love this pick for the Pistons, understanding it is what it is. It's a second-round pick.
Yeah, I love his shooting ability. I had a couple people text me last night and even this morning, hey, what do you think of the pick? I can't knock him as a shooter because he is a lights-out shooter on the move. That's great. But the Pistons need guys that can play defense too, and that's a big question mark for him. Can he play defense? He's big, he's physical, but can he play defense? I imagine this is a guy who's going to come off the bench for the first couple of years at the least. I don't know if he'll ever be a starter, but it doesn't matter. You're picking him 37th overall. You got him for a reason because he's a high-volume three-point shooter that knocks them down at a pretty good clip. So I like that. What I want to know is, what does this mean for what happens with the Pistons in free agency next
100%.
week? Because what are they doing with their own free agents that, like a Malik Beasley? Malik Beasley's, the guy's the man when it comes to three-point shooting. He's one of the best three-point shooters in basketball. May not like the little bit of a disappearing act in the playoffs, but okay. He's one of the reasons the Pistons had a big turnaround. I want the Pistons to re-sign Malik Beasley. What does it mean for Tim Hardaway Jr.? That's a guy who has a little bit more of a skill set than what Chaz Lanier does. But does that mean they don't want to re-sign any of the other free agents that they have? Is it just going to be Beasley? Are they going to let Beasley go? That's the question I want answered, and we'll know soon enough because NBA free agency begins on Monday.
Starting to look real crowded in the backcourt when you talk about Jaden Ivey coming back.
Yep.
A bigger role for Ron Holland moving forward. You bring in a draft pick that people think can play right away. You might love Schroeder, Hardaway, and Beasley, but it's probably squeezing somebody out.
Yeah.
And, depending on what kind of money these players command or what kind of role, I believe Beasley is eligible for the mid-level exception, so he could take up that. But somebody's going to be left without a chair in terms of the backcourt. So get ready to say goodbye to somebody. And I still contest that stretch four or big, Naz Reid or Bobby Portis could make sense. Preference Reid. Portis isn't what he was, but I think he's one of those guys. Just because he's not what he was doesn't mean he still can't be good, and he was a big part of the Milwaukee championship run. But Naz Reid, if they could find a way to get Naz Reid and add him to this team, I don't know if I'd even call that a move on the margins. I think that would be an exceptionally good move to add to this Piston roster, to go with the addition of Chaz Lanier. If they bring back Beasley, it really starts to look to me like a team that is going to be a problem for people when it comes to defending the perimeter.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see the Pistons find some size and some defense. I think they've got a lot of young players that can improve in scoring. I'm not worried about that as much as I'm worried about preventing other teams from scoring.
248-539-9797. Piston fans, if you want to react. I did see a quote yesterday, Gator, from a pro that made me think, could this be good for us? Quote from a pro, could this be good for us? We'll get to that today at 11:36, plus more of your phone calls. Feedback coming into the Karsch and Anderson inbox. Who would you rather have? If Jose Ramirez was available, would you rather take him or Alex Bregman? That's from Spike in Ann Arbor.
Jose Ramirez.
Yeah, why are we – where's this coming from, Spike? Bregman's rep is as good as a good clubhouse guy and a leader. His experience would be invaluable. He also isn't going anywhere, and Harris would not rent him. I tend to think that's 100% true, but I guess we'll see what direction Boston season goes. The other day we played Oakland. Sure, the A's, yep. They had a guy we just couldn't hit off of, Lopez. He's young with decent numbers. Any chance Harris might be looking at him? Hans for the Uber driver. So when you say young and it's a bad team, bad teams don't want to trade their young players.
Particularly bad teams that have no pitching.
Yep.
And he's the lone guy. I don't think you'd want to move that.
Mitch in Chicago writes in, last year by June 27th, the Tigers have been shut out 9 times and were shut out 14 the whole year. Guy called up and thought there were too many shutouts at 5. 248-539-9797. We got open lines. 97 won the ticket.